Hi, welcome to another technical data pack video. Today is snapshot day. There is a whole lot to unpack here, and I will leave that unpacking to other snapshot reviewer YouTubers, because I want to touch on something that I don't think anyone else is really going to be talking about. The more technical among you may have been reading through this snapshot changelog, gotten to this section, see there's like a whole bunch of changes to the item command that use like slot sources. Similar thing going on with execute. We've got a new execute if slots command. And then down here they just kind of start talking about slot sources as if they've been in the game for a long time and they're just making some updates to them. I think this confused a lot of people. A lot of people had never even heard of a slot source before. Like, what even is that? You would be 100% forgiven for feeling that way. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. I just kind of want to expose what slot sources are, what we can do with them now, and why I actually think they're like one of the coolest things about this snapshot. So, very brief history lesson. Slot sources were added all the way back in October of last year, so they have officially existed in the game since 1.21.11 Mounts of Mayhem, and when they were first added to the game, their only use case was to basically take existing items that exist somewhere in the world and add them to the output of a loot table. And you can see this is the snapshot that first added them. We can scroll through and, see the various things they can do, and they give a little example of one right here. If you read that changelog and just glossed over it because it didn't seem significant, you're in good company. I did too. Because since they've actually been in the game, slot sources have been pretty inconsequential. I mean, the ability to add an existing item into a loot table is kind of cool, I'll give you that, but personally, I can't think of any far-reaching use cases for that feature, and so most people, including myself, just kind of forgot that slot sources existed until today. As of this snapshot, like I said, we can use slot sources in the /item as well as /execute commands. So now might be a good time to learn what they actually do and how they work. And to show you what they are and how they work, I'm actually going to show you how one is used. So down here in this item command, let's say I wanted to put a lightning rod on my head. Well, this is the item command to do that. We've always been able to do this. The difference with this new version is that the slot argument now accepts a slot source as well as just a raw slot. And in fact, these raw slot names, like armor.head for example, are now actually considered shorthand for a slot source. So this command right here is actually equivalent to this command. So the armor.head on its own is shorthand for a slot source that looks like this. And this is a slot source. And as you can maybe tell from the way they're being used, what slot sources do is simply return one or more slots. So we already have some things in the game that return values, like predicates, for example, always return either true or false. They return a Boolean. Slot sources are another returning type of object that just return a slot in an inventory or maybe multiple slots. So this is an example of one that just returns one single slot. And I'll go ahead and run this command to show you that it works. And now you can see I am wearing a lightning rod. But the cool thing about slot sources is that you can now specify a slot source that actually returns multiple slots, as I kind of hinted at earlier. So this command, for example, should actually put a lightning rod in every single one of my hotbar slots, right? I specified hotbar.star, that points to my entire hotbar. So if I run that command, it should put a lightning rod in every single hotbar slot, right? Well, okay, not exactly. It still just puts a lightning rod in the first hotbar slot. What actually happened is that this slot source returned every single slot in my hotbar, but item replace is specifically coded to only fill the first slot that it finds. So that's why I got one in the first slot here. If I just make one simple change, if I say /item fill instead, well, that will actually put lightning rods in every single slot of my hotbar. So item fill was a brand new subcommand that was added in this snapshot to /item specifically to work with these slot sources that can return multiple slots. So there we go. That's already something we haven't been able to do before that we can now do easily with just one command. So okay, what else has been added? Because that definitely isn't the end of it. The coolest part, in my opinion, is that slot sources can actually now be defined as JSON files inside data packs. So if we go under data and then your namespace and then slot source, you can actually put in JSON files that give you a slot source. Now, as you can see, this slot source is actually a group of sub-slot sources, and this first one right here inside the group is exactly the one that I just showed you in that command that I typed out. But because you're able to group them together using the group type, you can actually create a whole new slot source that groups together multiple different types of slots. So this one right here will actually include all of the slots in my hotbar as well as the offhand slot, which is what this one accomplishes. So if I go ahead and just add this to my data pack and then reload, which yes, you heard that correctly. This is the first time in years that Mojang has actually added a brand new reloadable file type to data packs. They haven't forgotten about us after all. But anyway, now that I have actually added that slot source to my data pack, I can run the same command again, but now I just reference the name of the slot source that I added. So I think it was example, hotbar and offhand like that. That's just the name of the file that I just added. So if I run this command now, well, I'll get a lightning rod in every single one of my hotbar slots and my offhand. That is really, really cool. This also allows for partial clearing using a single command, which is also something we've never been able to do before. So as you can see, I actually currently have a full inventory of lightning rods, but if I run that same command again and I put air instead of lightning rod using again my same slot source that I added with my data pack, well then it will clear my hotbar and my offhand, but as you can see, the rest of my inventory is still full. All right, so aside from just the /item command being expanded, we've also got /execute if slots, which if I run it using the same slot source that I added, it will return the number of slots it finds that matches this slot source. So it actually returned 10 because as you can see, I've got 9 hotbar slots and 1 offhand slot. So that's a total of 10. Now this command is really powerful because it's actually possible to create a slot source that only returns a slot if it finds an item there that matches a certain predicate. So here's what I mean by that. I've got a filtered slot source type that's going to look for items that have exactly a count of 3, and then the slots it's going to search will go into this slot source field, and there I've got the exact same slot source that I already showed you. It's just a group that merges the hotbar with the offhand. So what this will do will actually only return slots in the hotbar or the offhand, provided they have an item with exactly 3 count. So we can run execute if slots again, and we'll see it actually fails the test because none of my slots have 3 items in them. But now I've got a couple of slots filled, and we can run that filter again. It will say test passed count 2 because I've got 2 slots that have 3 items and then 1 slot that doesn't have 3 items, and then the rest of them are all empty. Similarly, if I run the lightning rod command from before, what it's going to do is fill lightning rods in all slots that match this slot source, which should be only the first 2 because those are the only ones that have 3 items in them. So there we go. You can see it worked exactly as expected. I've got lightning rods just replacing the stacks of 3 logs. So I guess that's really all I wanted to say about slot sources. I can see these being incredibly powerful in the future. I mean, item commands and execute commands now have a lot more options available to us, and we got a brand new data pack file type, so that's always pretty cool. What else we got here? We got data-driven pottery sherds. That's very, very cool. More breaking changes. Expect to see a video on that after this update comes out. A new way to place structures so they only spawn exactly once at the origin of the dimension. That is very, very cool. And of course, a lot of very pretty stuff was also added in this snapshot. I am very excited for this update. We'll probably get it in about 3 months' time, just in time for fall, which is very appropriate. Can't wait to see what more Mojang adds in the coming weeks. But for now, I have been Conyer. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today, my dudes. I will talk to you all later.